We hit him with that old school jazz music, Mike. Speaking of old school, I'm bringing in one of my oldest friends of all time. This man and me have known each other since middle school. This is my buddy Ryan, who knows a lot about a lot of different sports. So we're just gonna have a barbershop kind of conversation about all sports while we watch this game here. Now, if this game gets real exciting, we're gonna break in and have to give you guys updates. But I had to bring in some reinforcements, Mike, because some of these playoff games get out of control real quick. So we're going to start off by talking just a little bit about a lot of different sports. But if this game starts to get exciting in the second half, we're going to go full degen mode and we're going to break it down piece by piece, frame by frame. But for now, I want to welcome my friend Ryan in. And I'm going to let you steer the conversation wherever you want to go, man. I know you have some topics on the top of your head. And this will be fun for me because usually I have to kind of steer the conversation. So where do you want to go first?
Perfect. So, thanks for having me on the podcast today. This is the first, so this is kind of cool. I'm a baseball guy. I was talked into doing a fantasy baseball league this year, and I've kind of hit the ground running and just went from knowing nothing about baseball to all of a sudden I'm second out of 10 guys right now. So, let's talk some baseball.
Let's go.
We haven't talked to anybody.
Who's the surprise guy on your fantasy team that you drafted just kind of like, I don't really know who this guy is, but either it was just late in the draft and you were like, I got to pick somebody, or it was just like, I don't know, maybe the pre-ranks were saying like, hey, this guy's falling, maybe I should take him now. Like, who's the big surprise on your team for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. Big surprise on the team is Tyler McGilly. He's the pitcher for the Mets. This guy wasn't even supposed to be starting, and then he came in for the ground when he went down, and all of a sudden he just like took off. So that was probably my big pickup. Picked him up late. Most people didn't know about him, and then he went out and won a bunch of games early. So.
And I don't want it to sound like I was just teeing you up for a Mets question, being that I'm wearing a Mets hat. We did talk about McGill, but I did not pose that question, so that's actually funny that you went with McGill. But he did just get hurt. So what? The Mets have a lot of injuries in the pitching staff right now. It's adding up. Scherzer went down. McGill got hurt. How long did they say? McGill was out for, do you know? Just curious. I'm thinking maybe you would know since you got him on your fantasy team, because I actually don't know. I know Scherzer, they're saying could be like 6 to 8 weeks, but I didn't catch the McGill news.
Yeah, so McGill looks like he's going to be down. He's on right now. I think they have him on the 15-day DL with forearm arm issue, something. So he's either be a quick recovery or it could be a whole season-long annoying injury, but hopefully he comes back. I mean, he's been playing really well for the team, so hopefully he gets back in the lineup.
Yeah, I'm thinking he will too. It shouldn't be too long. It didn't sound like it was a major injury. Who else are you going to be relying on during the season now? Who are your stud guys that are going to be carrying you throughout the year?
Sure. Let's talk about another Mets guy, Chris Bassett. He didn't do as well. He did okay tonight. I mean, he gave up a few hits, but still going 6 innings strong and keeping people on the basement. So another strong Met. I think he was kind of taken mid-round, kind of up there, but not too far up there. But he's still playing strong for you guys.
I appreciate the Mets love, but now I feel like you're just sweet talking me here. No, I'm only kidding. But who else you got? You got any Tigers? I know you're from Michigan.
No Tigers. Oh my gosh! Unfortunately, I think big fan of from Michigan. We know to stay away from Tigers.
Well, it's not just that though. To be fair, when you're drafting in home leagues, the home team does usually get overdrafted. I remember, and Ryan can attest, I'm a Stafford guy, but Stafford went ahead of Aaron Rodgers in 2 home leagues for like the first and second year that I did fantasy. Like now, you could argue Stafford has talent like Aaron Rodgers at times, but like there's just no reason to draft a quarterback in the second round. You know, not
Oh no.
not even Mahomes or some of the top tier quarterbacks. I think is a good strategy. So to let it be your hometown team just for the sake of having them, I'm not into that strategy either.
No.
Yeah, I know it's the same around here. Being in New Jersey, the Jets and Giants. I mean, you got to know who's in your league. Like most of the time, it's going to be Jets and Giants fans. But to be honest, we actually have a pretty good mix of people. The fantasy football league I'm in. Couple Giants fans, usually 2-3 Giants, 2-3 Jets, and then the other 4 are like Raiders, Steelers, could be Eagles, could be anybody. Like Steelers and Eagles in New Jersey's close, but you also know like guys like that should be falling later if they're on the Jets or the Giants. They're like I don't usually draft Jets or Giants. I did have a history of drafting Eli Manning late in my drafts because we had a 2 quarterback league, and but I took him super late, and it was worth it every time because quarterbacks were if you don't play in a 2 quarterback league, you don't know how valuable or having like 3-4 quarterbacks is.
So you never took Victor Cruz, wide receiver,
That
For Matt,
that goes back further than the league I'm thinking about.
Oh, okay.
Because I would have, but again, like he'd be a guy that would be going off the board a round earlier than he probably should. When he was in his prime.
let's talk about that from a theory standpoint, though. So we mentioned how it's bad. Like I said, Matthew Stafford gets overdrafted, and we kind of mentioned how it could be good. Now, do you ever find it where it's like you know the team so well that you know the diamond in the rough? Like I knew Alex Caruso was going to be a player for the Lakers pretty early on because I had seen him play. So like, what's your strategy there, or do you just like let value fall, and if it happens to be your home team, it's your home team?
Sometimes in like if I do college fantasy, I'm a Virginia Tech fan, so there's times where I feel like I'll know that this wide receiver is going to have a good. He's just the guy. It was Trey Turner. He got one of my friends who's a Raiders fan text me. He's like, "Hey, what do you know about Trey Turner? We just signed him as an unrestricted free agent after he went undrafted." And I was like, "Man, that's big play Trey, man. That's what they called him." Every time you watched a Hokie game, the announcer would mention, "Hey, and just so you know, this guy's nickname is Big Play Trey." And sure enough, he would always make one big play. He's not actually, I don't want to say anything bad about him. I would say he's probably, undervalued just because I don't know what kind of talent he really played with that quarterback or if he was in the right system to display all his talent. He wasn't getting a ton of targets every game. And was that, he wasn't getting open or, I don't know. I don't get the full scope of the game when I get to watch it live. I don't get the Dan Orlovsky tape.
What do you guys think about Dan Orlovsky during the Monday Night Football crew talking about Dan Orlovsky? I don't know if you heard
I'll let Ryan get in.
No, I missed. I didn't catch that one. But to go back to what Mike was saying real quick about the whole watching your home team kind of the thing, I think there's benefits to it because you're the one sticking it out, watching every game. You can kind of the upward trend. But then you run into homers out there in fantasy world where they're like, I'm gonna take. I remember one year in a fantasy league, seriously, somebody took who was that kicker for the Lions? Matt Prater. He took Matt Prater in like the third round.
Yeah, I was in that draft with you. I thought it was incredibly. But you do get that. You get the boss's way for the sister-in-law or even like the brother-in-law. Like we knew this one kid who just like his sports knowledge was like 10 years behind. But he claimed to be a sportsman, and like that stuff irritates me because it'd be like if I walked into a nail salon and I tried to tell the lady how to do her hair or how to paint her nails. Like I can admire someone's beauty, but to tell them something that they're so passionate about, that kind of stuff does bother me, to be fair.
So just to go to the basketball game real quick, when we got on, it was the midst of a Celtics run. It was a 17-0 Celtics run. This run I'm waiting for them to put it up now, what the run is at. But, I mean, Miami was up a little bit, and the Celtics are up, I think, 45-28 now. It was – oh, man, the Celtics are shooting – they were 9 of 11 from 3 at one point. The Celtics are –
they're shooting really well.
On a tear right now, and Miami does not seem to have the answer. Although Spoelstra is a great coach, so I'm interested to see if they can have that third quarter energy that they had last game, and if he's able to turn it around and make an adjustment that Udoka is not, because they made that adjustment in the third quarter last game, and it was kind of like what's going on in this first half right now for the Celtics, because it was a close game for the majority of that first quarter, and then the last like 4 minutes went all Celtics in a hurry. I can't say I've seen a run like this against the Heat all playoffs.
Ryan, I want to get you back in here, but we got some late breaking news to get you back onto baseball. We mentioned at the top of the show some baseball, so I want to hit some headlines. So I don't care if you guys are religious. I don't care if you guys have different affiliations, but we should all be praying or thinking kindly of this young reporter for the Colorado Rockies. I believe she was hit with a 95-mile-per-hour fastball today, and it seems like she's doing okay given the scenario. But I just wanted to, give her her due, because I don't think people realize all the detail that go into providing such a service. I know this year we got MLB extra innings, and so we can watch all the games, and that's been really great for all three of us here on this panel. But it's reporters, it's camera people, it's these kind of people that make that stuff possible. So it would be totally ignorant of me not to at least acknowledge when someone like that, who may not get a lot of shine, goes through a time like this. We should all show support, because we obviously love the product.
Yeah. 95 mile per hour fastball off the head without even a helmet. I mean, that's pretty serious stuff.
Yeah, I can't imagine getting hit in the head with something like that, and it's not even her fault. I know from hockey games and stuff like that, baseball games too, they always tell you, even the minor league games are like, be alert. You should always be alert at all times. And I get that as a fan, even like when the game's going on, you should be alert. And I get that there are distractions. There's going to be times where people have their lapses too, but she's actually got a job to do while she's there. So it's not really hard to believe that, she had to be looking down at her notes, or like there was obvious reasons for her to have distractions going on, like more so than I would say a normal fan. Like I get she's probably got to know she's got to be on alert too, but she's working, so like I get when you're working, you're preoccupied. I get you're you're covering the game, but at the same time, I get how she could have not been looking at what was coming, because who knows, was she like live in an interview?
She was live from what I
That's
know.
that's the crazy, like she's got to be looking at the camera, so
Right.
totally not her fault. And not, I mean, maybe they should look into how they, when they do live interviews, like now, like I don't know.
Yeah, have like designated standing areas or something like that.
Yeah, like I know that she's always in the crowd usually, but maybe don't be down the first or the third baseline. Like be in the outfield, be in the behind the pitchers, or behind the home plate, so that it's either going to hit the net or it's going to be like a high pop up. So there will be plenty of reaction time with those line drives. Like the first and third baseline is danger. Like I don't know how we don't have more base coaches get hit. Like the first and third base coaches, I know that they're looking at it, but still, like most of these guys aren't like young spry chicken, or spring chickens. They're old, like the Tommy Lasorda types or the Don Zimmers. Like they're old guys. Like I don't know how these guys are always able to get out of the way of these quick pull shots and just beans off the bat.
And it must be taking their life. That's the only way I can think, because they're left in an unavoidable situation. Like you're focused on something completely other than really the game, in a sense. Like you're talking to the camera, you're focused on what you're gonna say next. So, yeah, that's crazy. Hopefully she's okay.
Yeah, prayers to her.
See, that's what I like about this show is we talk about things that and doing it live, we can react to such a thing. Speaking of reacting, I really been enjoying like watching baseball again, or watching sports that I don't normally watch, or like just trying out different things. I would encourage, and I know I did it a couple of weeks ago with the WNBA, if any of you haven't tried some of these new sports with like the streaming services and all these other things, there are some really cool, like fun new sports out there. I might even try some soccer or some football coming up, because I was listening to Gov and Mike talk, Ryan, and they were talking about how soccer does like a tier system for their standing. So like the worst teams in the league, they get demoted and they go to different classifications. And so like it's just getting a draft pick or something, they actually go down to a lower tier and play with more teams until they're good again. And like just some of that innovative like new age stuff is interesting. I even got to give a shout out to the USFL. They're changing some of their rules mid-season, which I kind of like, because it's like, well, one, they're trying new things, and two, they're recognizing a problem and they're fixing it right away. I know, Ryan, for example, that's one of the big turnoffs for you in basketball, is that you just think a lot of the same referees, the players kind of become really theatrical and kind of ruins the game. So I kind of like it when leagues kind of take on an innovative approach.
Yeah, I mean that's always been my sticking point with the NBA, is I always felt like it was very theatrical. Like there's all these guys like flailing around, falling on the ground, and they're in a gust of wind knocking over. It was like, that's not real basketball. I mean, think back to your younger days playing on the basketball court with your buddies and stuff. You're smacking each other around. If you don't walk off that court with a bloody face, you're not playing, right? But now, like as I watch the game and they put new rules in, and I think they've really cleaned up some of that in this playoffs. I mean, I haven't watched it, but I've been hearing a lot about on sports radio, like James Harden, for instance, right? He's always been a guy that was a contact player. Like he succeeded by getting these calls, whether they're phantom or whether they're legit. He got a lot of points off of that. And now, this playoff run, they really handicapped him. Like, they didn't call a lot of that stuff. Another guy mentioned is Steph Curry. He was famous for getting these like little calls, like flopping and all these different things. And
Chris Paul too.
Yeah, Chris Paul. I'm telling you, man, they're not the bad boy Pistons of Bill Laimbeer's and Dennis Rodman's days with the Pistons, but I will say they are allowing a lot of physicality, even in the regular season this year. It's not so much physicality, I guess, Mike. I would classify it as like they're just not letting the offensive player like create the circus environment where it's like, oh, you're gonna jump and I'm gonna jump into you. They've really eliminated that. So like, if there's physical contact, that's one thing, but they've eliminated the theatrical like, I'm gonna jump into you now that you're in the air kind of thing.
Yeah, I think it's good because that's one of the things that makes me not want to watch soccer all the time is the flopping. And in soccer, it can be like one goal is so critical. So when these guys get away with, a foul call that's totally undeserving and it happens to be in the box, like it's a goal almost all the time. It's so hard to stop a penalty kick if the guy, places it right. And so that's what like can ruin soccer for you if along those lines, like Ryan was saying with the flopping. But I agree. I think they've done a good thing where they make it. I don't know. They're just trying to take that shit out of the game, and it's a good thing.
Well, I'm really glad we got to talk some baseball tonight because we hadn't talked any baseball on this kind of free-flowing show before. So it was nice to. I don't know how long you got. I know you work in the morning as well, so I don't want to keep you too long. But I thought it might be fun because Mike's known me for a while, Ryan, but you've known me your whole life. So, like, I thought it'd be funny if you guys kind of compare and contrast, like, my sports and get us onto some interesting topics where maybe I got to defend my takes. What's some of the most egregious takes that I have that I just won't get off of that drive you nuts?
Oh, okay. So I got one.
See if Mike agrees with you.
Before Matthew left the Rams and became this god mode, right? He was with the Lions, and you can debate this all day long. Is it how much of it was Stafford and how much was it the Lions? Was it 80% Stafford and 20% Lions, or what the take is? But Logan, as long as I know him, he's always died on the cross for Stafford. It didn't matter. He completely stuck that week, completely threw like 4 picks and just was, Brett Favre, the bad version of Brett Favre. That was always Logan's take. And it used to drive me nuts because of the phantoms. Like, we're losing games here, and I guess, I get part of it is the Lions is just not a great organization. But for a little stretch there, we had Calvin Johnson, we had Dominic Kinsu, Clint Averill. Like, we had a stacked team, but not consistent quarterback play kind of took us out of some games and really just we weren't able to get anything going. But
see, what I want to do now is, Mike, as a non-Lions fan, right? As a person who knows me but not crazy. Now, is that Homer or what? Like, I need you to say, like, obviously there's obviously some Homerism there. But
I got a good answer, I think, to that, because I will agree that you are, diehard Stafford. Once he went to the Rams, same thing. You were still on board. And, I mean, going to fantasy teams, I drafted Stafford in my fantasy team. I didn't win the championship, but I had a great regular season, and I just fell apart late in the year. But Stafford was the reason and I had Cooper Kupp. They were great. But to go to your point, like, I don't think you were a Stafford homer per se, but I know you do have a tendency to be a Lions homer when it comes to fantasy because, uh, going back to times when I'd ask you fantasy, who you like this week in your fantasy lineup, you have like 2 or 3 Lions in your lineup every week. So I'll say that, but I do think you were always right with Stafford. I never had a problem with Stafford in your lineup. It would always be the other guys that'd be like, I don't know if I can't remember, but like you definitely did like a few Lions every week. And I get it though, if you like Stafford, you're gonna want to stack. So I guess it did kind of make sense, but you did like Stafford a lot. But that's typical. Like I know Jets fans who are my friends who are fantasy guys, and they'll have a lot of Jets. They like the Jets every week, and it's like I'm not a huge fan of their fantasy guys, but I will say Stafford was always a good fantasy guy. He was a good fantasy guy for your whole season fantasy team. He always put up numbers, whether he was the reason the Lions lost or won, I don't even know. But the fact he always had a bunch of fourth quarter wins shows he was always capable of getting it done when it mattered. So I don't think you were wrong for always liking Stafford. I think he proved you right this year more than anything.
Mike, prior to this year, can you solve one big debate we've always had, right? And don't count the Rams year because we haven't had this debate since the Rams. But we always have this debate every year when he was with the Lions. Is Matthew Stafford a top 12 quarterback? Ryan would always say no. I would always say yes.
A top what number?
12.
Oh, top 12?
Yeah.
Prior to this year?
Prior to Rams.
I'd probably say yes. And I that's just going off of, I don't know everybody I'd put in front of him right now, but I'm just thinking he's definitely in the top 15. So,
yeah,
that's the top half of the league, top 15, top 16. He's definitely in the top. I think he was the top 12 quarterback.
Now, to be fair to Ryan, I know he loved this one player that I think you both really will agree on and like that I do not. So this is where I'll give Ryan credit, and I just never liked this guy, but Ryan always did, and it was Alex Smith and then Kirk Cousins. For whatever reason, you guys both give those two guys too much credit, in my opinion. But
yeah, I think I do have a topic I want to bring up after this, but I always like Alex Smith. Alex Smith was a journeyman quarterback. He's not that guy who's gonna throw the ball 3,000 yards a year or whatever, but he's always going to be consistent. He does play a big factor. I've never been like the Brett Favre style quarterback who was a gunslinger. You're going to live and die by that arm. I've never been that guy. I always want consistency. That's why I was such a fan of Tom Brady. Take away the Michigan connection and that he played for University of Michigan. Take that away per side and just look at his consistency. That's something that always stuck out to me. And so those are the guys I went for.
What was your topic, man?
Oh, yeah. So the topic that I wanted to bring up is so we all like. What was I going to say? So a lot of times when we watch sports, we look at guys from two lens, right? We either look at him from the fantasy lens, like he's a great fantasy player, but if you're a great fantasy player, does that always make you a great actual player for their team? Does that make sense?
No.
I agree. And that actually, if I can go real quick, because that was what I was going to say about, I have no real opinion on Alex Smith. I like him, but I don't think I ever thought he was great. Kirk Cousins is a guy that I think is a great fantasy quarterback. If you can steal him late, especially in a 2-quarterback league, he's put up great numbers for me, and I get him very late in the very late rounds every year. And that's all I'll say. I don't think Kirk Cousins is a great quarterback for my team. I don't want him on the Giants. But especially for the money he's getting. But fantasy wise, man, I'll take him, like getting him in the, I don't know what we do, like 20 rounds maybe. Getting him in the after 15th round, maybe I get him a little earlier than that, but getting him after the 10th round, it's just like, again, he's like the second option, but he's money as a fantasy quarterback, and it's just because he's got great weapons. Got Justin Jefferson and Thielen.
Yeah, I think in fantasy you have to focus more on what kind of weapons they have and do they run. For example, like Taysom Hill in some scenarios is better than Tom Brady in fantasy because you got the rushing upside.
I'm taking Tom. I'm taking Tom every week.
I'm not saying like that's my point. It's like real football. Nobody would take Taysom Hill over Tom Brady, but in fantasy you would, because there are games in fantasy football where he plays tight end and quarterback and can catch a pass. Tom Brady's only going to do one of those things, and he's a pocket passer. So you do see a big difference between fantasy and reality when it comes to football, especially.
So I'll give you a guy, Ryan Fitzpatrick, right? He was a guy who could go out there at one point and throw multiple touchdowns a game. Now, he was a double-edged sword because he would also throw multiple interceptions in the game. But fantasy-wise, he was relevant because he's giving you at least 3 touchdowns a game. Those are points, And if you link up with his receiver that week, you're banking twice.
Well, and to your point, they give way more points for touchdowns than they do interceptions. Most leagues, including even DraftKings, gives you 6 points for a touchdown, and they only give you -2 for interceptions. So a guy like Jameis Winston with the Buccaneers is very much the same way.
Yeah, absolutely. So here's an interesting one. So let's go back to baseball for a second. So would you rather have a guy that hits home runs or gets steals, fantasy-wise?
Steals because they're so rare, but I'll let Mike go after that.
I don't really know what the fantasy value is put on each of them.
No, I can give you a little bit of breakdown on that. So fantasy-wise, steals are hard to come by. So usually when you're in a matchup for a week and you get like 2 or 3 steals, you're winning that category.
Right. Okay. So it also depends on what you're playing. If it's the head-to-head where it's based on the categories, or can't they do it where it can be not just the categories, but just like there's a fantasy value placed on each stat?
Yeah. So basically, like however many categories you win that week, that goes to your overall record. So,
right.
But if it's like 7-6, then you get 7 in your win column, but then you also take 6 in your loss column. So that's how they kind of play it out.
Right. Yeah, no, I get that. When there's just like 2 different types of formats you can run a league in, I think, and that's one way where it's each statistical category is broken down, and the winner of each stat gets 1 run or 1 point, or 1 win, I should say, actually. But there's another, like in fantasy, I've played like other fantasy basketball for the season, and it's just like fantasy football where every rebound is worth 1 point, and it just keeps track of your points for the whole week.
For the whole week, right?
So like the final score would be like 1,500 to 1,400 or something.
Yeah,
like that.
baseball can do the same thing too.
So it depends. It depends what type of league you're in. Because if you're in the league you're talking about, then I'd say steals. Because like you said, it's something that you can almost ironically steal a win in. Because most guys probably don't have guys that do get the steals, and home runs are something where you would think probably most guys are gonna load up on those type of guys. So might as well maybe give that category up and just take the L on that and get a bunch of guys that are the speedy guys, get the steals, get the triples, get the doubles. Don't worry about home runs. Let everybody else, try and pay up for home run hitters and just go with the speed and the pitching maybe or something like that. Maybe go for the closers too.
Speaking of closers, I want to close my eyes, man. This has got to be bad because it's not even one team or the other. It's just we've seen a lot of blowouts in the playoffs.
Just this week, just so far this week, it's been pretty unentertaining games.
But I gotta say, that's also good for them that fantasy is so popular, talking about different ways to play. I remember Ryan came over for I think it was the Eagles-Bucks game, right? Ryan came over, and you're like, why are you still watching this? Can't we play some video games? And I'm like, I have Gino Bernard in my lineup, and I was like, if he scores this touchdown at like 3% ownership, it's going to make all the difference. So there are going to be guys that are watching, Duncan Robinson, for example, in the second half potentially try to score 12 points, and that might make the difference between them winning $1 to winning 1,000.
Yeah, I'm stunned by this game, though. I mean, I expected Boston to come out playing better, especially with their two starters back, but to be up 25 at halftime, scoring 70 points, holding the Heat to 45,
Now, Ryan, like I said, I don't want to hold you too long. You tell me if you got to go, man, but I got to ask you one question that I've been saving for the podcast. You don't know this one's coming. You have tried daily fantasy sports, and you reluctantly do fantasy sports every year, but once you're in it, you get really into it. Is it just a time thing? Could you see yourself going back to more fantasy sports, less fantasy sports, and then give the people your view on daily fantasy sports and whether it's good or bad for the sport in general? Like, does it kill the fandom for you?
Good question. No, I think fantasy sports is good. I think it actually brings in more viewers, because you're gonna start watching games that you'd never watch. Like, I mean, how many people are lining up to watch? Let's just say
Jacksonville, Tennessee, London on Saturday morning, right?
I was thinking the Reds, or if you're going baseball, or if you're going with football. How many people are lining up to watch the Lions who are not from Detroit, all right, or not from Michigan?
Yeah.
Probably not a lot of people, because they're like, okay, they're bottom barrel team, they're not really doing that great. I mean, there's been times where I've gone to sporting events because of the other team that is coming in. It's more to see that than to see my actual own team, because my own team is not doing anything.
Yeah. If you're a Reds fan.
Yeah, they're going 16-0 or 0-16 for the year. So I'm going but to make a long point short, I think fantasy sports is actually good for it. The only trick is obviously if you're a person that doesn't know when to say no, and then you're gambling all your finances. That's the only bad thing to it. But
I would love a conversation on that too, because I know you haven't met him yet, but we have another co-host, Governor, who's really into betting, but he's very transparent the way Mike is too. And I know we could have a good conversation on is betting good, bad? Like, what's the psychology behind it? How does it help her? I think that'd be a great round table discussion, and I would love to bring you in because you know enough fantasy, but you're not into the day to day, especially daily fantasy. So yeah, I would value your opinion very much into that because a guy like me and Gov, I will do daily fantasy for the USFL and the WNBA, but you can attest I'm actually a WNBA fan. Like it's on Amazon Prime. I actually watch it.
So speaking of WNBA for a second, what's going on with Brittany Griner? Did I say her name right?
Brittany Griner. Yeah,
Right.
I do have an update. Me and Mike mentioned that a couple days ago, so I should mention Mike. Adam Silver said he has stepped up his game, and they are looking at exhausting all efforts to get her home.
Oh, it only took a couple months to
To be fair,
do something.
they've been going behind the scenes, and apparently they've been more forward about it on social media, trying to put pressure on the government. Now they were trying to play nice before. I have to be transparently honest because I told you I'd always tell you if I'm wrong or if I might have had the wrong take. And I do think the NBA kind of like Granham's women's sports by saying they're such a fan and putting them on the billboards and stuff, but never really promoting them. But I recently heard, Mike, that the WNBA is basically funded by the NBA. Like without the NBA, they'd be bankrupt. To the point where it costs the NBA about $1 million just for the WNBA to run.
I think that's right, and I think that's why the WNBA players don't get paid that much because they're not, and it is a combination of things. They've never been promoted like the NBA players have. They're starting to do that. You see Sue Bird in a lot of commercials. You see some others, but you don't see a lot of others. You see Sue Bird in a lot. And that's great that they're getting some exposure, and more would be better, especially the younger ones. There is one girl, and the sad part is I have no idea who she is. She's in a commercial with Trae Young and Boban. I don't know if you've seen this.
I haven't seen it.
Oh, it's very funny. Trae Young, like they're in like it's like a Costco by me. I don't know if they have Costco by you, but it's like a major bulk buying supermarket.
Yes.
So Trae Young can't reach the thing. This WNBA superstar, I don't know her name. I can't hear. I've tried to listen to Trae Young the couple times I've seen it. What name he says, but yeah, Trae Young reaches for it. He can't, and then she just comes in and like grabs it for him and hands it to him, and he's just like, "Thanks." But then she immediately goes to reach for something that's higher. She can't reach it, and then Boban comes up and he grabs it for her, and then gives it to her, and she's just like, "Thanks." And then the funny line he has at the end is like, "Do you guys need anything else? Because I can reach it." And it's just funny because Boban says it. It's obviously not as funny when I say it, but I don't know. I got a good kick out of it when he's just like, "Hey, I'm tall and I'm gonna milk it for all the commercials I can."
Yeah, that's crazy to me that he has two main commercials. He's got the one you're talking about and then the goldfish one. Since when?
Oh, he's got the rings one with State Farm. He's like scrubbing out the. He's got multiple ones. Yeah, the goldfish one with with Toby and Bobby.
As much as I like Baker Mayfield and think he still has a chance to make it in the league, that man has a lot of commercials for being in his scenario. So,
we're good. I mean, I'm not saying Boban isn't, but Baker's commercials, come on, I love them. I'm like, give me a couple more. I hate to see him leave the Browns because now we don't get those commercials anymore.
Yeah, that's true.
Where do you think he goes? I think he actually goes to the Lions because of the Glenn Dorsey connection.
I honestly, I don't know. I feel like I feel like they dogged him so much that he becomes a grocery bag shopper at Walmart. And
But I actually think, though, Ryan, that he's actually gaining some popularity and some like credibility. Because at first he kind of came out and it looked bad because he was like, "Get me out of here! I want to go." And then they were trying to play him off as immature. But now it's coming out that the Browns have had multiple offers, and they're just playing hardball to make it difficult on the kid because they said that, well, if they wait a long time, it'll be hard for him to initiate himself into training camp. So how fair do you think that is from a life perspective? Like, I know we have compete clauses in other sports, especially like wrestling or actors in movies, but I don't like that stuff, man. And I don't even gotta like you as a person or as an actor or as an athlete. But I think if that company is done with you, then you should be able to be free to work where you want. Like I'm not okay with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think the Browns are being, trash if that's what they're doing. They're being classless, and shit like that is why you are the one of the bottom feeders in the NFL. Like,
Well, apparently,
Browns suck. They always have. They're a shit organization, and shit like that is why.
I mean, the rumor was Pete Carroll offered a second and 2/3.
yeah,
I think that's kind of fair.
I think the Browns are just one of those organizations that struggle. So a personal story: my brother, he works for the NFL. He's an equipment manager with the Buffalo Bills right now. So he's one of the equipment managers out there. He spent a week with the Browns to see if he wanted to go work there as equipment manager, one of the team members. He said it was so unorganized. It was so terrible. He's like, I had to get out of
That
there. He's like,
that's a good story because that tells you a lot.
Yeah. So
It tells you a lot. Yeah, it was for an equipment position.
Yeah, so he helps the team get ready for the game, stuff, make sure all their gear is ready, make sure it gets traveled to wherever they need to go, set up for the game and whatnot. And he said he spent a week with the Browns, and it was one of those situations where it was just so unorganized. It was just, you could tell like that organization has constantly gone through like change all the time that nobody knows what the heck they're doing. It was just crazy.
And to be fair to this story and your brother, he joined the Bills before they were specifically good. Like he joined them right before they are the Bills that we recognize today. So they were, in rebuilding mode when he joined, correct?
Yeah, they were. Yeah, so Coach McDermott, he got brothers spent, I think, with the team like around 5 years now.
Right.
And for Josh Allen, really became the stud that he became.
Right.
I mean, if we can all remember that they were talking like Josh Allen was a bust. Now we don't talk like that anymore, right? Now he's got a street named after him because he's done so many good things for that team. And it's amazing what that coaching staff, between Davo, was it Ryan?
Right. He's coaching Mike's Giants now.
Yeah, he's on the Giants now.
You got a good coach there. I think he now can he solve the Giants' issues? I don't know about that.
We hope so.
Look, I think the Giants are going to be sneaky good next year. They're one of my sneaky good teams. I know, believe it or not, this is betting odds, Ryan. This is not my opinion. The three top losing teams that did not make the playoffs that people think are going to make the biggest jump are in order: Jets, Lions, Giants. Those are the teams where people are jumping all over their win totals.
Yeah, I have heard that about the Jets for sure. But they have a tough schedule too, and I've heard one one person make the point that the Jets have it's a ridiculous number of first either rookie or second year players as their starters.
It's first.
Seven of them are on offense, but they have more on defense. So it maybe it's double digits or something like that. But
Well, I had heard something very similar, Mike, where it's like I think they said they're projected like 13 new starters under the age of something incredibly young, because they also got Carl Lawson and a couple of young guys that just were injured all last year that never really played. I bet it because DraftKings had like a DraftKings special for like it was a crazy short amount of time. I actually tried to message you and then realized, oh, I'm not even going to bother because it's already gone. I think I got the Jets at plus 202 to get 5.5 wins. So
that's pretty good.
I was like, I'm going to take this
2-1.
right.
I mean, I still kind of like it because I think it shouldn't be that hard to get 6 wins in now a 17-game season.
So
they had 4 last season. Like they should be better. They drafted well again. I did really like their draft. The thing that worries me is their youth, and I'm not super high on Zach Wilson, so I'm not super high on Daniel Jones either. I'm totally about him proving it this year, and Saquon's got to do it too. I think Saquon can. I believe more in Saquon than Daniel Jones.
Question about Saquon. Giants have the second overall draft pick. They pick up Saquon Barkley. In your opinion, I mean, if we can kind of go back and relook at things, would you still draft Barkley over a quarterback?
I would.
I forget who the quarterbacks were at the time. I know like Sam Darnold was one, and I was actually it was Sam Darnold and Josh Rosen were the two guys. I feel like.
Here, I'll give you some quarterbacks.
Or actually, Josh Allen was in that one too, wasn't he?
But that's hindsight because no one was going to.
I wasn't thinking. I didn't like Josh Allen in the draft. I have no problem saying that. I was like Wyoming. I've seen this guy throw. He's got a rocket arm. He overthrows everybody, and he had 2 good running backs at Wyoming at the time. I don't think any of them are in the pros right now, but they were good for college.
So let me read you some quarterback names that were all drafted first round, right? So we had, obviously, Baker Mayfield went number 1 to the Browns that year, so he would have been off the board already. But you had Josh Allen, going at 7 to the Bills. You had Rosen that went 10 to the Cardinals. And then scooting all the way down to lovely 32, Lamar Jackson.
Ooh, Lamar, yeah. Hindsight obviously is a great equalizer, and in hindsight, I will say I would have loved if the Giants could have traded back to get Barkley and get extra picks and value. If he wasn't there, get somebody else. Like, don't take a running back at number 2 is all I would say. That is a lesson I think the Giants and all fans have learned. It's something that's been said. You don't even take a running back in the first round, maybe, and that's what every team seemed to go with this year. So, I think what the Giants saw was a few years earlier, Zeke Elliott going number 4 to the Cowboys, and that was kind of a little bit of a shocker that he went that high. But man, he looked great for the first few years as a Cowboy. So the Giants were like, this Saquon Barkley guy is Zeke Elliott 2.0, if not better. We got to just nab him up, and he's a sure thing. We don't have to worry about anything else. If our offensive line sucks, he'll make plays. And that wasn't the case, and he just also got a little unlucky with injuries, I think. I don't know if they were all his fault or not. I mean, the rolled ankle thing was so fluky.
I like Daniel Jones, by the way. I still think he's got a bright future.
He's accurate. I just don't. I don't know. We just need to protect him. If we have a great offensive line, if this thing, these draft picks,
Like Neil.
years have turned out to play well together and mold and gel, and he gets the time he needs, we have all the weapons.
Well, you also have Hernandez too, who hasn't shown it yet, but like now that you got the two bookend tackles, like if Thomas can come back with Neil, and you still got Hernandez at guard, I believe, I think that could still be good, man.
Yeah, we drafted another tackle to go along with the tackle we drafted Andrew Thomas a couple of years ago. We drafted two more guards. Not that I know anything about guard offensive linemen, but they're trying to give ourselves depth at least. So any of these guys work out and we can give Jones protection, he's definitely got a shot. It's just if he's not protected, he's a turnover waiting to happen.
Now, I do kind of want to wrap up here because I think we've had a really good conversation, and like I just really think that you want to end on a hot streak, and why not? We were going to stick around for this game, but I don't know if this game's going to turn around. Like one thing I got to say though is I think you're appreciative about Ryan. He watches a little bit of all sports. He's also a UFC guy too, so he enjoys watching the sport for the sport. So
for sure. Yeah, definitely UFC guy from time to time. Fun fact: my girlfriend she does MMA. So a lot of guys tease me, like, "Oh, she can beat you up." Hey, listen, I'm still a man at the end of the day. I got that psycho gene in me, so never want to use it, but it's fun. She's a beast.
Well, that's awesome.
well,
so you gonna do any amateur fights?
So her amateur fight days are behind her. I think she's mother of two, and she does it more for her fitness thing.
Well, that's so cool, though. I was just curious if she was doing that. Be like, we got to look her up.
Yeah, absolutely. No amateur fights like that. But she did do a grappling tournament, and I believe she won the grappling tournament. It's been a few years now, but yeah, she was quite good.
yeah, I only met her a couple times back. I definitely see that with her dimensions that she'd be really good with the grappling.
Yeah.
Now, Mike, before we close shop, and I know Ryan knows his sports too. We had Jesse on a couple of weeks ago talking about UFC, but he asked us the question where we would put Deebo Samuel. And Mike hates it when I put him on the spot, Ryan, and you're used to it because you've known me for years. So I'll go, and then you can go, and then we'll let Mike kind of stew over it. Because I've given this some thought. The best place for Deebo Samuel to go right now today, and I'm going to make this a segment. Every show, I'm gonna pick a random free agent that's still on the market. I'm going to tell you where they should go, where they will go, and who shouldn't sign them. And the worst place, I think, would be if he stayed with the 49ers. The best place would be the Baltimore Ravens. You could really run the Heisman-style offense they were trying to run with Ingram. And I just think they could create almost a wishbone type running. I mean, you could put Deebo in the backfield with Jackson. You could bring motion. They still have the Gus Bus over there. I like it, man. I like what they could do.
I'm going to give you one. I think Jacksonville Jaguars. I mean, listen to those lineups. So they Christian Kirk. They got Marvin Jones. Zay Jones, which is a beast if you ever watched some Buffalo games. That kid can flat out catch the ball. You got Evan Ingram at tight end. Throw Deebo in there. And what they did on defense this year, I mean, they got that guy from Georgia, and then they got the linebacker Utah. I think that would be pretty interesting.
It's weird to me that they went with him over the production of Aiden Hudson, but I think it's going to be to the Lions' benefit.
They want power. I look at their 2 draft picks back to back. The guy from Georgia, which I keep forgetting his name. He's a power guy, and then the linebacker from Utah, same thing. He's a power tackle guy. I mean, he's gonna be pretty special. So I think that's what they were going for.
Hey, you jinxed me because now the name's escaping me. Mike, where do you think Debo goes?
I got one. I don't know that this is where he goes, but this is where I think he would be a great fit, and most valuable would be the Atlanta Falcons. And we lost Julio a couple of years ago, thinking, all right, we got Calvin Ridley to step in, and then they lost Calvin Ridley. He's suspended another year for the gambling thing. I know they drafted London, the wide receiver, this year from USC, and I know they drafted Pitts last year. But Pitts had a pretty good year, but I think he kind of showed he needs help. So I guess that's why they drafted London, and maybe he can do it. But I think a lot of rookie wide receivers kind of need another guy to take a lot of pressure off them. So I think if they were to be able to make a move and get Debo somehow, that would completely open up their offense in a big way. And they got to have the cap room, because I mean Mariota can't be getting that much. And I know they drafted Ritter, but I like Ritter too a lot. And if you're not paying money for a quarterback, you've got the cap room. You got to go spend it. And if you're not paying money for the quarterback, that means he ain't that great, or he's at least not proven yet. In Ritter's case, he's just young. Go put a ton of talent around him and give the guy the best opportunity to succeed, because you got a small window when you got these guys on rookie contracts and stuff like that.
Yeah. Real quick, I heard an interesting take. Someone said the other day that they would not pay wide receiver. So after their 4 years, they would go to the draft and get them into the draft. Which I kind of like that take. I kind of think that's the new model. There's really not one guy out there that's like, yeah, you got your Devontae Adams. I get it. He's kind of a stud. But I mean, look at these guys that are coming out of college right now. I mean, we had Ridley, we had Jamar Chase. I mean, we've had pretty talented guys.
Sure, but you wouldn't keep guys like Cooper Kupp. You would rather move on from them and pay them.
I kind of think so, yeah.
At the rate they're getting paid right now, it's getting kind of crazy.
Yeah, I mean, look at what you're getting out of college right now. These kids out of college are stepping in and playing right away. I mean, Jamar Chase just went to the Super Bowl.
I think I would do that, but on the opposite end of you, Ryan. I think I'd pay my wide receivers and even my, you could say, skill position, so maybe even like a Kelsey or a Kittle, and I would draft a quarterback, because the quarterback market is higher and higher than any other position. And so I would just roll the dice that I can create more talent around an average quarterback, similar to what the Lions are trying to do with Jared Goff, or what the Falcons are trying to do with Mariota.
See, I still think you need to hit on that quarterback. You can't just – and once you hit on that quarterback –
but, Mike, that's what
you're not going to just let the good quarterback walk. I think that's a bad idea.
Maybe, but like we've always heard that you got to pay up for a quarterback. What if this draft class is the new trend, where it's like you load up on? I mean, because look at the way even the Falcons did it with all their talent. I mean, London and Pitts are going to just be towers for the next 10 years. So you got probably 5 years in their prime to find a quarterback.
I personally have no idea if London is even going to be any good. I didn't see him play.
Well, that's why I say he's going to be a tower.
So.
He's going to be a tower. I can't say,
Yeah, I definitely think you gotta pick a quarterback. I'm sorry, I'm not that bold. I mean, I'll make a bold statement, but I'm not that bold to jump on that. Let's not pick a quarterback because that we all know that.
Well, I'm not saying don't pay them anything, but like if they're not willing to give you somewhat of a Tom Brady discount, then I would move on. I'm not going to give any quarterback Patrick Mahomes all the money because even we saw it with the Buffalo Bills. I mean, you mentioned them earlier, so we might as well just keep going with them. They were able to pay Diggs and Josh Allen because both of those gentlemen understood the value they have to each other.
What did Josh Allen take for a contract?
Well, I mean, they paid Diggs, so you got to assume they're going to pay Allen. Like you got to.
Well, that just happened because his contract hasn't come up yet. It's not.
Maybe you're right. You could be right. Maybe
That's.
Maybe it is a Green Bay Packer like scenario, but I don't think so.
You can afford to pay one receiver, but that's why they couldn't. Like you can pay one other guy a ridiculous contract on your team, but with the Chiefs, they had paid Chris Jones on defense. They had paid Kelsey. They paid Mahomes. They can't pay Tyreek $25 million a year too. Like the cap's like 208, I think, which is a lot higher than I thought it was. But
going up, man.
still, like, to lock up almost 3/8 of your cap in two players is it's a lot.
Teams that can get away with that theory. So certain teams they can say that big guys because they know that they have enough history on their side.
Like Miami can do it because they got a rookie quarterback contract. Eagles can do it because they got a rookie quarterback contract. That's all it is. These guys are able to. The receivers know, it's all has to do with the agents. The agents are like, we can get, my job is to get you maximum value. It helps you get the most money, and as the agent, it helps them get the most money because they get a percentage. So based on, the more money for them, the more money for the player, the more coming back. So they don't care about whether the team wins. Their job is to, do what the player wants, but they're going to sell to the player. My job is to get you the most money. That'll make you the most happy, right? The most money.
Don't look now, Mike, but I tell you what, Jimmy Butler and those junkyard Miami Heat dogs are trying to fight back.
They're still down 23.
They are, but they were down 40 at one point. So,
all right, it's 20 now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just to finish that thought on players and where they go. Like I look at a team like the Lions or the Browns or guys like that. They historically have to pay huge in order to get a player come because they just don't have that winning history and culture on their side.
But I think that's ending though, because with streaming services and stuff like that, players are getting more exposure. When we talk about commercials and stuff, I don't think you have to be in a big market like Mike now to get those opportunities. I do think that helps.
Yeah, but I think culture plays a factor. So, like, a lot of guys go to the Lakers and go play basketball for the Lakers because they know the culture there. The Lakers been a winning organization for years, right? And when we were in high school, yeah, they had that little dry spell where they couldn't win a game, but you still had Kobe Bryant, one of the best players in the league, and you still had a lot of draw, and then you had all the marketing opportunities that came if you went there. So guys went there. Now people are not lining up really to go and play for the Grizzlies, right?
No, I think you're wrong, sir. I got to stop you before you make yourself into a fool, man. I got one of the youngest, most talented young teams in the league. I can't.
Yeah, but those guys got paid yet.
Yeah, but they got lots of money, dude. Trust me.
I'm just saying, how many of those guys on second contracts? You can make that argument when they're on their first contract and you draft them and sign them. Of course, yeah.
Okay, for example, the Miami Heat are a destination team because of their taxes. So it's not just about the glitz and glamour, though.
Taxes, nightlife. I mean, not a lot of people are going to Utah go play basketball.
Well, I'm just saying we have seen friends want to play with friends more often. Even in other sports like baseball, you do see players talking to more players. It's not so team oriented as it once was, in my opinion.
This game, you might be right.
And that'd be
Sorry
nice
to interrupt.
for a smaller market team. I mean, what was the last big free agent the city of Detroit got? Javi Baez this year. Problem with that is we spent a lot of money for Javi Baez, and we got nothing around him.
Well, you got to realize, Mike mentioned it earlier, the cap keeps going up, and these star players are just going to want money, dude, no matter where they go. I mean, that's just the way the sports market. You can like it or dislike it, but players get paid a lot more than when it was 2007.
True.
All right, man. Any other questions since we don't have that many guests on all the time? Is there anything we missed that you wanted to cover before we wrap it up?
No, I think that's about it. I think we had a pretty good conversation. We covered everything other than we never covered the WWE wrestling. What's going on there?
Oh, we cover that. We cover that at least once a week, man. We're live almost every night. I should mention before we close up shop, we have 52 subscribers of 100. Once we get to 100 subscribers, we will be doing a giveaway, including some digital items, so anyone can participate in this. You can be international, you can be from America. We'll find a way to get you some sort of incentive. So if we can get to 100 subscribers on Twitter or YouTube, we'll do a big giveaway batch. Maybe for a UFC big card, Mike. Maybe for the Joanna Jacek fight. You never know when we might hit a spike week, and all of a sudden we're at 100 before you know it. So thanks, guys, for joining us. Thanks, Ryan. We'll have you on again, buddy. I know your number. I haven't lost it yet.
Sounds good.
Yeah, nice talking with you, Ryan.
Yeah, good talking to you, Mike.
Good stuff, Logan.
Yeah, man. Did he want to stay alive? I think he had work in the morning, so we had to let him go. But I mean,
we can wrap up. It's all good. We don't know that this game's going to come back or not. But
I will say though, before we do wrap up, do you think it comes back? I guess we'll leave the people on that suspense.
I'd love to see it. I think anytime you get these, although I do want a good series, but I am a little worried if the way Boston played this, if they could just win the two at home. Like,
I'm staying by it, Mike. I think the Heat win in 5.
I don't. Boston looked good. Boston's looked good the last 2 games. Boston just had a bad third quarter last game.
They have a bad third quarter every playoff.
They're having a Marcus Smart just broke the ankles of Strus.
Yeah, I just saw it.
But
I like that. Strus is
it's a 19-point game. I mean, it's not looking like it's a sure thing. Like,
true.
Going back.
I do like to notice things that are different than most people, though. And if you notice, it looked like Strus got his ankle broke, and then like literally as he's getting up, he's telling Smart, "Good play." Like he knew it. He's like, "God damn it!"
Yeah.
Like, good play. Like. All these young kids get this like reputation of being AAU basketball and not caring, but I think it's a bit of the UFC kind of mantra. It's like if you show respect, then people are like, "Oh, you're soft," but if you're too macho and hard-headed, then you're an asshole. So it's like sometimes I don't feel like these people can win.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, but. Yeah, we'll say some topics for our buddy Gov and some of these other guests. We've been bringing on some guests. I had some interesting topic ideas. I don't want to burn all the fuel tonight because you know how we like to do it, Mike, 9 o'clock, almost on a nightly, weekly basis. So we'll be back before they know it, and we'll have some big UFC breakdowns and some takes pretty soon. So hopefully everyone stays safe out there and keep on having those barbershop conversations about sports. They're important. They mean something and they're valuable. Have a good night, guys.
Later.